Golly, that's good. I cracked myself up. I still haven't found my first Blanton's. That's different. I really like that. They're like together, like peas and carrots. That's funny. Sometimes accidents are good things. Peychauds or Pechauds or Pechaw. This is not what I expected. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Monday, and it's time to get underway. We got Green River that we're doing tonight, and I'm happy you're here. Tyler's with us, and Paul's with us, and more are to come. There's a little bit of excitement wrapped around this one tonight, and I will tell you that I am quite eager to get this Bourbcast started, so let's do it. Without any further ado, I kind of want to wait and make sure that people are here. Hey, how you doing, Paul? So, we'll get into Green River. Green River, I've got lots of stuff to tell you about this. I mean, lots of stuff to tell you about this. It's got an amazing heritage. But since we're talking about amazing heritage, you got to start talking about the Old Fitzgerald. All right, so I have a sample of a Old Fitzgerald 12-year made by Stitzel-Weller, bottled in 1969. So this is an original Van Winkle. Would have gone into the cask in 1957. This was very likely made by Pappy himself before he died in 1965. And I have one here. There's a gentleman that I met who had a vintage bottle that he thought he was going to be able to sell, and because of the condition of the seal, it's not going to be able to sell. At least not for what he was hoping to get out of it. I mean, we're talking about a mere fraction about what he would have been able to get out of it. Hundreds of dollars instead of thousands of dollars. So he decided it was worth more to him to break it open and pour some friends a nice sample of it, and that's what he has done for me. And I cannot tell you what this means to me. Very, very kind of this guy to do this. And I'm not identifying him. I'm not anything like that. I'm saying thank you. And I'm grateful, very grateful. So we're going to put this in a Glencairn. Okay. This was barreled in 1957. Did I get that right? Yeah, 57. I wasn't even a speck in my parents' eye yet. All right. So here we go. What's the math on that? Let's see. So 69. So this would be 53 years old from the dump date. 53 years old, or 63 if you go from the barreling date. Unreal. I mean, I've had some older stuff before. The Jim Beam's friend of mine gave me the Genie for My Dream of Genie. That bottle, the Jim Beam bottle, about 1980. Mount St. Helens bottle, 1980. And I've tried them, and they're fantastic. They're fine. A little different than they are today, but I'm a little nervous. I mean, you can't screw up a tasting, right? But still. Okay, here we go. Let me hop back over so I can see if anybody's talking to me. All right. Austin's watching. Hey, Austin, how are you? Okay, all right. By the way, Tyler, I'm still waiting for that private message about the liquor store that's got the bakers. Although never mind. I'm not going to say it. 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 Okay. Here's to you. 53-year-old Old Fitzgerald. It's like a brand new today. Oh, that's gorgeous. The cinnamons are strong. Hints of butterscotch. The vanillas, some things never change. Why mess with quality? Very, very slight astringency, but not enough to turn me off. Less than a lot of today's bourbons on a fresh crack. This isn't a fresh crack. It's been poured. It's been sitting. It was in the gentleman's very, very warm car. I'll shoot you one. Thank you, Tyler. Zach's watching. Hey, Zach. Did you see what I'm doing? Did you see what I'm doing? This is a 53-year-old Old Fitzgerald. Gee. Okay. I want to say this is 100 proof. I was told it's bottled in bond. 12 years, that would be a little bizarre on a bottled in bond. Holy cow, is that good. Oh my God, I'm having a taste-gasm. Wow. Wow. It's so smooth. That wheated side of things is just so silky. Beautiful mouthfeel. That's gorgeous. Oh, when the flavors, they continue to change on the palate and on the finish. Slight fruit notes in the finish that I wouldn't, and a little bit of leather. Oh, wow. I have enough for one more pour here. But I'm not going to pour that one. I'm just going to enjoy the rest of this one. I'm not doing water and I'm not doing ice on this old geezer. I'm just going to enjoy it the way that it is. Wow. This will have a wheated mash bill. Silky. Okay, directly in the center of the palate, there's just a little bit of must. Just a little bit. It's on the center of the palate. The tasting is happening on the around. There's not much of a bloom on this at all. Even for 100 proof, it's very, very smooth. But the flavor is happening around like a circle, and in the center is this musty feeling to it. It's not off-putting at all. I've had other ones that had a little bit of a must to it that were off-putting, including a couple of the Henry McKenna 10 years. This one is not off-putting at all. It's just adding to that's that leather I think that I'm getting. Okay, I got just enough for one more sip here. Wow. Right on the tip of my tongue, just a little bit of red hot, like the candy. Oh. This is a spectacular pour. Too bad this is all I'll ever have of it again. Wow. 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 Made by Pappy Van Winkle himself. Golly. I am such a lucky man. I just, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a stupendous gift and one I'm not worthy of, and thank you for that. I might cry, but I'm not going to. Okay. All right, so let me get past my euphoria, and I'm going to get into I'm going to move this off of here because I'll open that bad boy up and drink the rest of it, and I don't want to. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Hey, Jordan's watching. Hey, Jordan. It was nice to see you while you were in town. All right. Hey, Lorena's watching. Hey, how are you? I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I know. It's so cool. I want to dive into it because there's just some pours, but I got to show some restraint. I don't know. Maybe I'll have the last of this on New Year's Eve, or it'll have to be a pretty interesting occasion. Now, let's see if you can remove yourself enough from that pour to be objective about the Green River. I was thinking about that, Michael, and thank you for mentioning that. It reminds me that the next step for me is to become objective about the Green River, because it's a fresh crack. I've never opened it, but boy, do I have a lot to tell you about it. I have a lot to tell you about it. It's a very interesting bottle. I almost missed my mouth. All right, so I have that, and then I also have some coffee grounds from this morning. I'm just going to give this a nice whiff. Blech. Okay. Do that, one more sip of water. Wow, that was incredible. I could almost just end the Bourbcast right now, but then I would go back to that little vial, and I don't want to. So here we go. Green River touts itself as the whiskey without regrets. Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to find that out tonight. I'll be the judge of that. All right. Going to start with a little snark there, right? This is a fresh Glencairn. The website calls Green River Distillery the 10th oldest distillery licensed in Kentucky. But then they say it was brought back to life in 2014. So if it was defunct, can it still be called the 10th oldest distillery? Well, let's answer that, shall we? While I pour this. So J.W. McCullough founded the distillery in 1885. In 1913, it became the official whiskey of the U.S. Marine Hospital, and they maintained that for 18 years, so they were able to remain medicinal during Prohibition. It was one of the most advertised brands of whiskey, and in 1915, the byline was the whiskey without the headache because of its quality. You know, bad whiskey, you get a headache. Good whiskey, you don't get a headache. There's no sugar in it, so it's sugar that causes hangovers, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. But in 1918, the distillery burned to the ground, and that fire took more than 40,000 barrels of whiskey with it in about 3 hours. Whew, gone. All right, Jonathan's watching. Hey, Jonathan, how are you? We're doing Green River. 22 years later, in 1955, Green River Bourbon was no more. Oh, I missed a little bit. 1933, 15 years later, the distillery was rebuilt. Because why rebuild during Prohibition? No point in it. Yeah, they had a medicinal license, but that was 40,000 barrels that went by. But it was rebuilt, and post-Prohibition, they couldn't claim any medicinal quality anymore to it, so they had to change it from the whiskey without the headache to the whiskey without regrets. And for a while, that distillery would also produce the distillate from Mellow Corn and Ezra Brooks and a number of other ones you probably never heard of, and I had never heard of them. So, however, 22 years later, in 1955, Green River Bourbon was no more. Distribution was stopped, and that's how it stayed until 1993, 38 years later, when after the facility was bought and sold a number of times, and it was then completely abandoned. Completely abandoned. All right. 21 years later, in 2014, Tesserecia, say that 5 times fast, Corporation bought the property, and reconstruction of the distillery began, preserving as much of the original facility as possible. By this point, it's been dormant for 59 years. Almost as long as this has been around. See how I keep going back to that? Because I really want the rest of that. 2 years later, and now 61 years since they shut down, whiskey was being finally distilled at Green River by master distiller Ron Call, who then passed the baton down to his son, Jacob Call. In 2020, the distillery went back to its original name, Green River Distillery. And after being purchased by the Bardstown Bourbon Company, the bottles finally went back on the shelves starting last year in 2022, using the original distilling facility and as close to the original recipe as they could find. This year, the distribution expanded to 23 states, including Ohio, and that leads us to this moment. They have this one, which is the Kentucky Straight Bourbon. They have a wheated one, which is also available in Ohio, and they let's see, this is $34.99. The wheater is $34.99. And they also have a single barrel, which is not yet available in Ohio, but you can get it in other places in the distillery. Okay. Aged on site at some of the oldest warehouses in the state. Oh. This 90 proof whiskey is rich in color with a golden amber hue. Green River is made with locally sourced corn. They get it locally. Featuring a mash bill of 70% corn, 21% winter rye. That's a high rye. 9% malted 2 and 6-row barley. The higher rye content contributes warming spice notes on the nose and palate. It's 90 proof, $34.99. Why is it so cheap? Because they don't have to build a new distillery. They don't have to fund R&D. It is what it is. This is the recipe. This is where it's made. Let's just make it the way we used to make it. The company says it's aged for more than 5 years. Now, let me just say, the nose is nice. I may be getting a little influence from the Old Fitzgerald, but it's got some nice fruit on the nose. Can I identify it? No. But the spices from the rye are there. It's more like a Lawrenceburg style rye. It's not like an Alberta rye, because Alberta rye is going to give you those cereal notes. This is that nice spicy Lawrenceburg rye. Yeah. Not astringent at all. Cinnamon's fruity note. What is that? Little honey? Oop. There, I got it up my nostril. Yeah, definitely some honey, some butter. Butter on the nose, which never turns me off. All right, a little more about this. Bardstown bought a gold mine. They bought a producing distillery instead of another non-distilling facility that sources their distillate. In fact, Green River has enough capacity already that they're sourcing for other brands such as Bob Dylan's Heaven's Door single barrel. Something else I want to tell you, and I told some people about this earlier today, and maybe this doesn't mean anything to you, but we were talking about this being the oldest distillery, or 10th oldest distillery in Kentucky. I'll tell you how I know that, and I did some research into this because I think it's cool. On the front of this bottle, it says DSP KY10. The DSP is a tax stamp that Abraham Lincoln himself put into place when they brought back the excise taxes so they can fund the Civil War. Okay? So when the Kentucky distilleries were lining up for this tax stamp, this one was the 10th to do so. Now, if they would have moved into a new facility or built a new facility, that number would not be the same because it would be a new facility. It wouldn't have the same tax stamp. But since they're using the original facility, they can still call themselves DSP KY10. I don't know. I find that interesting. I like the history of this stuff, and the fact that this does give us distillate and juice from the 10th oldest distillery in Kentucky. Yeah, it's verified. That's why. They're using the same recipe in the same plant. Very, very cool. I think it is. Also, you'll notice there's a horseshoe on the bottle with 10 notches on it, referencing Kentucky and its place as the 10th oldest distillery. And it also says the whiskey without regrets and the pride of Owensboro. Yep. Okay, all that's on the bottle. Okay, that's enough about it. Let's get into it. Larry's watching. Hey, Larry, how are you? Joanna, hey, I'm glad you're watching. Thank you for watching that. Currently drinking the wheated, but I think the bourbon is a touch better in taste. Good to know. Old Fitz got your tongue. Yeah, Lorena, it kind of does. I'm going to have to probably cleanse one more time because I don't want to mess this up. I want to get this right. I think this is a great story for a really new old bourbon from an old distillery. I just think it's fascinating. Okay. All right. One more sniff out of here. Okay. All right. Green River. This has been on the bottom shelf of the liquor stores, and we're going to find out if that's worthy of it or if it should be on a higher shelf. All right. That fruit note really is front and center. I want to say black raspberry. Could be black cherry. I had a pour the other day that blew me away. I didn't expect it. You know I don't like Cleveland Black. Cleveland Black is a terrible whiskey. It's awful. I had the Black Cherry Cleveland Underground. It surprised me. I really enjoyed it. A little thin on the mouthfeel, but just wanted to get that out there. I actually found myself, I was in the liquor store the other day, and I found myself recommending it to somebody. But I told them, I said, it's got great flavor, but it's a little thin. Okay. I keep putting this off. Really nice notes. The honey is nice and strong. Okay. Okay, 90 proof compared to the Old Fitzgerald. Little thin, excuse me. But the flavors are very nice. Not nearly as sweet as that wheated Old Fitz. And I know I'm comparing it. And I shouldn't do that, but I can't help myself. Is this going to replace a Buffalo Trace? Is this going to replace a Michter's? Is it going to replace an Eagle Rare? No. But standing on its own 2 feet, not really holding onto the glass a whole lot. Like I said, it's got a little bit thinner mouthfeel. You know, I had the same thought about the Ezra Brooks 90. They don't bottle that anymore. They got rid of that, and now it's the Ezra Brooks 99, which has a better mouthfeel, more robust, better flavor all around. It was a brilliant thing for them to do. Yes, I mourn the loss of the 90, but if the Ezra 99 is that much better with only a few more bucks, go for it. I find myself thinking the same thing about the Green River. Proof it up a little bit. Go to 94. Go to 96. Go to 99. Okay. Now that I've primed my palate for this, let's get back into it. That's actually pretty good. Now on a second thing, the mouthfeel doesn't feel as thin now. That was a pretty decent sized swig. But it's got nice flavors. Again, it's not sweet. It's more on the dark side. That rye is taking over, that spice. That's a high rye, 21%. There are just very slight notes of toasted cereal in that, which I rather like. It fits this. It doesn't set it... Let me rephrase that. It does set it apart from other high rye bourbons, because some high rye bourbons, all you get is that spice, and this is giving me just a touch of that granola, just a touch. You got to look for it. It's there though. It's really nice. Make sure I'm not missing anything. People are being tagged. If they're not members, or they may be able to be. This is a page, not a group. They should be able to see this. Yeah. So thank you for tagging people. I appreciate that. Tell people about the show. The more people that get to see this, the more fun it is. The more people that engage and chat, the more fun it is. All right. So Jordan, I still haven't heard back from you about not having a bourbon with me while you were in town. See how you are. Okay. So let me give you a few of the tasting notes that I got from other places. I haven't read these yet, so they didn't influence me, but let me tell you what Breaking Bourbon says. And Breaking Bourbon, you know, I like reviewing bourbons, but I'll tell you what, Breaking Bourbon, they write great reviews. I really like Breaking Bourbon. And when I'm looking for a new pour and it's not on Breaking Bourbon, I find myself feeling a little bit heartbroken. I will be honest. But okay. Breaking Bourbon says, a wealth of brown sugar and caramel scents. Caramel, yes. Brown sugar, no. Push forward over an even sweeter underlay of creme brulee and butterscotch. I can agree with the butterscotch. I will not say it's as sweet as a creme brulee. But then again, I'm coming off this Old Fitzgerald, so who knows. Touch of corn that follows... Corn, that's it. I said it was a fruity note, but it's corn. It's corn. Touch of corn that follows, creating a solid bed for the sweet scents to lay upon before leather, got that one, closes out the nose. Relatively soft and gentle aroma. On the palate, mix of caramel cream candy. I said candy. Dark brown sugar. Yep. Begins the palate in a familiar place. Mixed nuts and dark fruit. Nailed that. Before the sip turns decidedly herbal and floral. I didn't get the herbal and floral. There is a black tea quality to it. I do like it when I find black tea or orange tea in my bourbon sips, and black tea is in this one. I am getting that. Paul Smith. I spend lots of time on breaking bourbon myself. Very great on details. I totally agree. I don't always agree with everything they write. I don't always agree with all of anything anybody writes, but that's what makes this so much fun, is my palate is different than yours. And Paul, we found out my palate is different than yours. There were things that you were picking out that I didn't find. There were things that I was picking out that you didn't find. That's fun. And occasionally you find some notes that are in common. There's a young lady that I know, and very young, in her 20s, and she's like, oh, the notes are bull. Yeah, I get the taste of this, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's not bull. If you know how to taste wine, if you know how to taste bourbon, it's not bull. Those flavors are there. You can find them. It's what, they're not in it. It's what reminds you of cinnamon, honey, caramel, vanilla, blah, 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 right? Okay. So on the finish, Breaking Bourbon says the herbal and dark fruit notes of the palate carry over into the finish. I will say I do get the dark fruit. I'm not getting anything herbal. Soon after, a layer of thick leather and mellow oak are added. I am getting that oak. Before rice, spice, and pepper become barreling in. Not barreling in, but yeah, they're there. Maybe not the pepper, but the rice, spice, yeah. As with the palate, the finish stays manageable at all times, and its silky smoothness trails off thanks to a lingering roasted aftertaste. I am not that poetic on the Bourbcast. I'm just not. Okay. Let me get Michael David. If you know how to taste specialty coffee, same deal. It's learned. It is. It is. That's why I know that I don't like Ethiopian coffee. I like my coffee earthy. And don't get me wrong. There's two types of Ethiopian coffee. There's the coffee that's grown in the highlands, and there's the coffee that's grown in the lowlands. And it's been too long since I've cupped coffee. It's been let's see, that would have been, well, it's been 10 years. I was in Costa Rica 10 years ago. February 10 years ago. Anyway, so in Ethiopia, it's one or the other. The highland, you can have the same cherry. Coffees are grown on a tree. The beans emerge like a pit in the cherry, and they have to take off the cherry and the pulp around the pit to have your coffee bean. That's how it works. I've seen it done myself. I've held it in my hand. It's very cool. It's a neat experience that I had. But in Ethiopia, that same cherry, if it's grown in the highlands and the lowlands, you could have two completely different flavors. I don't remember which is which. It's been too long. But the one gave me very fruity notes, and I didn't like it because I like an earthy coffee. The other one was very much like I might be used to out of something from Somalia or even Costa Rica, where it's very earthy, very, very earthy. It's the only way to like nice and robust and no fruit overtones. I'm in the minority when it comes to that, when it comes to the cupping community, because they really like those fruity notes. I do not. All right. Lester's watching. Hey, Lester, it's been a while. Glad you're back. Good to see you. All right. So this sits on the bottom shelf. It's not very expensive. It's $35. 35? I think so. And it really shouldn't be on the bottom shelf. It's better than bottom shelf. I do like this pour. It's not going to replace some of my other dailies. And I say daily as if I actually have a daily, and I do not. But if I did have a daily, Ezra 99 might be one of those. I still like Bullet. That's a 90 proof pour. That's nice and spicy as well. Those are dailies, and Bullet's cheaper than this, but not by a lot. All right. Let's open it up a little bit, shall we? About a milliliter. Boop. Get the rest of it in there. All right. So Michael's watching, and Michael has told me that he prefers Woodford Reserve with a little bit of water on it. I will still fight him on that one. But what he did teach me is that water will open up some pores. Last week, did the Baker's single barrel. That was really good with a little water on it. Mm-hmm. I won't put it on Woodford. That's just a thing. I think I've got my feet in the like digging my heels in on that one, but all right. Where are we at? 7:31. All right, I gotta get through this. All right. So Green River on water. River, water. Oh, it's just funny. That improved the mouthfeel a lot. It's funny, I was saying that I thought that they ought to proof it up, but by adding water, I actually proof it down, and it improved the mouthfeel. That's really nice now. It did open it up. There's definitely sweeter notes now. That's nice. That corn sweetness is coming out. That dark fruit is still there. But the tobacco has kind of gone away. It's made it a much sweeter pour. Yeah, it's nice. Still just a little thin. Just a little bit thin, even with water on it. But it's better than it was. I would suggest you try this one. Choose for yourself. I like it. I don't love it, but I like it. I won't dump it down the drain or anything. All right, so ice time. I really want to go back to that Fitzgerald, but now my palate's destroyed. Get this done. And I have to remember what's next week. That's wonderful. All right. This is not an elegant ice sphere. This is used to be elegant ice sphere that's been in the freezer for too long. At least it's not the ugly Death Star one that I tried last week. I looked at that one today. The extra one that I had last week, that even got uglier. You can't even see the lines of the Death Star anymore. It's all like covered in ice. I got to figure out a way to make that work. I don't know. Put it in a cooler or something to let it slowly freeze. Okay. Ah. Spoon. And this sphere is decidedly smaller than the Death Star one. Yet, still, that's enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right. Does it fall apart? Let's find out. Yes, it does. There's still some flavor there. But it was thin to begin with. It's 90 proof, and you put it on ice, and it goes... Yeah, so don't put this on ice. That's enough of that. Finger, I know, Paul, finger. That would have been easier. Less elegant. And you know I'm all about what's elegant. All right. Okay, so I didn't bring it over. Okay, so next week I've been pressured by a young lady to review Woodinville. I had Woodinville scheduled for October, but this young lady is pressuring me to do Woodinville a little bit earlier. And I will tell you that Woodinville has a really cool story. It's from the Washington... There's that elegance right there. There it was. It's from Washington State. I have more elegance coming. Hold on. There it is. Okay. Goodness gracious. All right. And it's a small operation that had a great product, but was this close to losing it all because they couldn't keep up. And then things changed for them. So next week, we're going to profile Woodinville because they just, again, it's another distillery with a really cool story, and I want to tell it to you. Don't look it up on Google. I'll do it. So, all right, guys and gals, thank you for watching. You know, Green River, if you see this, it's not going to be like the end-all, be-all fantastic pour. It isn't going to be that, but it's good pour. It's reasonably priced. And they've got a great story, so I would tell you that you should probably get a bottle of this, share it, maybe become a shelfer for you, or you know, a daily. It's just good enough to be a daily without having to spend too much money. I see people that spend a lot of money on their dailies. They're $40, $50 on their daily pours. It's like, you don't have to do that. There are great pours that are less than that. The other thing I'm finding is a lot of people are into the Buffalo Trace thing. I was online today. Somebody in Central Ohio on one of the bourbon blogs was like, here's what I'm looking for. And everything was Buffalo Trace. It's like, okay, let's stop it. There's other stuff out there. This is Bourbcast 162, 163, something like that. There are other pours out there. And this one is a fine pour. It's not an awesome pour. It's a fine pour. There are other things out there. I was in a liquor store the other day, and somebody came in and said, "Do you have the one with the horsey?" So, do a little work, find out what's out there. By the end of the year, you watch. I'm going to do a comparison show. That if you like Eagle Rare, Blanton's, E.H. Taylor, Stag is going to be a hard one to come up with. But if you like those, I'm going to do a comparison show that says, this is what you can do if you want Eagle Rare and can't get it. This is what you can drink if you want Buffalo Trace and you can't get it. Throughout the line. And I'll tell you, you already know, and I've done this one, but I'll tell you now, if you haven't seen it, if you like the Sazerac Rye, and I do too, but if you want a rye that's just a little bit better and has virtually the same mash bill, Elijah Craig Rye is the one that I recommend. It is fantastic, and put side to side, it kicked Saz's butt. Baby Saz. I haven't had the 17 year, but I have had Handy, and that's fantastic. Elijah Craig's not going to kick Handy's butt, but it does kick Baby Saz's ass. So there are other things out there. You just got to look for them. You got to do the taste test. You got to find out. All right. So next week, Woodinville. We'll tell you the whole story behind it. Thank you for watching. I don't know what this is. I'm going to keep doing it because it's fun. Lester's saying, looking forward to your comparison show. It needs to be done, Lester. It has to be done. I was looking online today and they were saying replacements for Eagle Rare. Now, I really like Eagle Rare. That may be among my top 5 pours. And I went online, I did a search, replacements for Eagle Rare, and the ones that I saw, I can't agree with. One person said to replace Eagle Rare with Maker's Mark. No. Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon, and it's got a very specific flavor profile. Eagle Rare is a 10-year bourbon. Maker's Mark is not. So somebody else said the Russell's Reserve 10. I'm just going to have to do that comparison show. I'm going to have to do, over the next few months, I'm going to have to do some research and I've got all those pours. I just have to do the work and see what really does replace the Eagle Rare, the Taylor, Buffalo Trace. I mean, they all have kind of like this sweet side of their mash bill, and that's the part that's going to be hard to replace, because this is not sweet. I would love to tell you that this will replace it. It doesn't. It's 90 proof. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's good. I like it. It doesn't. So Woodinville next week, and then sometime this year, the comparison show. So make sure I'm not missing. Had some mellow corn tonight. Hit the spot. Good story, good bourbon. I'm glad you liked it, Kevin. Do you know what the differences are in the single barrel? Kona coffee from Hawaii is awesome. Okay, yes, you're right. I've got some Kona coffee from Hawaii that I still haven't gotten into. I was there in 2016, so I suppose I probably ought to get into it, right? So the differences in the single barrel is it's going to be, without digging into it, I don't know if it's a higher proof or anything, but it's going to be a single barrel, right? So if it's, let's just pretend it's 90 proof. I don't know why you would do a single barrel at 90 proof. It's got to be higher than that. I don't have it in Ohio, so I don't know. But single barrel, I mean, Baker's has got their single barrel. We did that last week, and you know, as good as that was, you get 255 bottles out of one barrel, and then you got to switch, and then that's going to be different. So the one I had last week was fantastic. Fantastic, especially on water. Oh my gosh, was it good. But I did the tasting of the McKenna 10-year, and there were 6 of them from 2021. So that was a 2011 dump date, or no, 2011 barreling date, 2021 dump date. And some of them were better than others. That's what I criticize. I don't criticize. Baker's is all single barrel now. They used to have a small batch that was all blended, and Baker's is now a single barrel, and some will be better than others. So if Green River is doing a single barrel, some will be better than some will be better than others. With that being said, I am obviously slurring, and it's time to say goodbye so I can go to bed. I'm going to have a little more of this because I do like it. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Just found Silver Grove from New Riff compared good to ER. There are so many suggestions, Paul. So many. I'm going to cut through it and find one that really does compare to ER. ER has got a nice spice to it, but it's also got a sweet side to it. It's very unusual, and it's a 10-year. Will Russell's match it? My experience says no, but we'll find out when I do that show. All right, that's it. I'm going to slur, I'm going to have problems, and I'm going to get out of here. So thank you for watching. Next week, Woodinville. I hope that that young woman that I've been talking to is watching, so she knows that I'm going to do it, so I can stop being pressured. Pressured. Did you see that spit? I saw it. So I can stop being pressured by her. I feel like a victim. I'm a victim. No, I'm not. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We will see you next week right here with Woodinville on Beautiful Bourbon.